Hi, this is Corey, and today is day one of what I'm calling my 6x6 in 6, and it's the 100-day project challenge. As I was recently doing a project, I was looking for some materials, and I realized how much 6x6 or how many 6x6 paper pads I had. We pick them up for a couple bucks at thrift stores or Tuesday morning, and they're just really inexpensive and they're easy. We get them and use them for a project or two, and then we're left with a ton. So this 100-day project is going to be a different 6x6 project each day, just using 6x6 papers and some basic supplies. And they're going to be designed to use inside junk journals, or your photo albums, or your traveler's notebooks, or for Happy Meal, or basically any paper project. So sometimes, like with the Tim Holtz papers and such, they're in 8x8, and I'll show you those as well, but it's going to be the same concept of 6x6. And so now in the 6 minutes, that's the other piece. So 6x6 paper in 6 minutes, and the goal is to take about 6 minutes for each project. So because of that, I got to get going. And this is essentially what it's going to look like. This one is an 8x8 paper, but it's basically you're using just 2 pieces of 6x6 paper, and in this case, whatever filler page you want. And you can tuck this inside your album, you can tuck it inside your traveler's notebook, inside your junk journal, whatever. And these are just some samples of what you can do. It doesn't have to be a vintage or modern or any theme. You can do it with just about anything. This is, again, using the 8x8, but cut it down to 6x6. So that's an option. These are ones I made for my kids with different paper, my students. And just using cards, flashcards. So it doesn't even have to be a full 6x6 to get the same effect. Let's see. Here's another one if you're more of a vintage style person. This is the Tim Holtz paper, and so it's an 8x8, and I cut it down to make it to 6x6. And then it gives you a little flexibility with some of the scraps that are left over. So you can make a tuck spot in the back. You can do a tuck spot in the side. This is a scrap again, and just a little flip book in case you wanted some more pull-off type paper. So another one. This is a true 6x6 made out of Christmas book, our Christmas paper. And most of these I sewed on the side with a sewing machine because it's the easiest, but you don't even have to sew it. You can use washi, you can hand sew it, but you do want to attach it or bind it in some way, shape, or form. Again, this one's a true 6x6, and I did an external stitch, hand stitch, as opposed to an internal hand stitch. This one is, again, 2 6x6 with some scrap paper, lined notebook paper, and then I made a little tuck spot in the back with the extra piece of paper. The cut down piece, I should say. It's not extra, it's a cut down piece. Here again, it's just a really tiny little itty bitty one with some notebook paper, lined notebook paper, and super simple, super quick. Tuck it in for a little thinking of you, and it's made with playing cards. And then here's the one that started it all. I was making a project for a friend, and I thought, what can I do with all these 6x6 pieces? Because I have a lot. And this is just random bits of paper cut down to fit. So those are what we'll be making. And I'm just going to use a generic black and white for this particular project. And let me show you what you need to get started. So you'll need some glue. Because I'm going to hand sew this one, I'm going to use this guide. If you were going to machine sew it, you don't need a guide at all. And if you were just going to use washi, obviously you don't need that. But because I am hand sewing it, I need my guide, some binder clips to put the pages inside the little booklet, a needle to sew the thread in the thread, and then a punch awl or any kind of a pokey punchy type tool will work just fine. A pair of scissors and or a paper trimmer. That's a personal choice. You don't have to use a paper trimmer to do this, but it's just fast, so I did that. You're going to want a washi. Absolutely have to have some washi. just a piece of purple tape or masking tape or painter's tape or anything like that. And you only use it for just a moment, but it really makes life a lot easier. So I suggest that. Notepad, your 6x6 notepad, whatever you want. I think for the projects here, I'm going to try to use this black and white because it's fairly neutral and I have it, and why not? And then whatever paper you're going to use to fill. I just took some copy paper right out of my machine and I folded it in half. That's all this is. And we'll cut it down to fit in just a bit. So those are the things you need. And let's see if I can do this in 6 minutes. Okay, your first step is to choose your papers. And for this particular project, some 6x6 paper comes double-sided and some is single-sided. I find for this item, some single-sided is fine, but for this, double-sided works great. And I like that paper, and I like the one right next to it. So I'm just going to take these two, the stripes and the polka dots, and remove them. So there's my two 6x6 pieces for this particular one. Okay. I've got the 6x6, so they're square, and I am going to cut off 2 inches. And because of the way this goes, I could have the stripes go vertically or horizontally. Doesn't really matter. But because of how I want to use the piece later on, do I want it like this or do I want it like this? I'm going to just cut 2 inches off. So I'm going to take this, take my paper trimmer, and because it's 6x6, I'm going to go to 4 and cut it down. And then this, my front and back cover are ready to go. And I can use stripes, I can use polka dots. It truly just doesn't matter. I'm going to go just like that. So I've got my, I'm going to set those aside because I'll use them later. I've got my 2 front and back cover. Now the way I generally do this is where I use the masking tape, and I line them up on my work surface and then I tape them together. And I'll show you why in just a second. I'm going to go off camera for just a moment and line them up in my grid piece so I can do it fast. I just lined them up in another piece so that the bottoms would be flush, and I just want a little bit of tape to hold these guys together while I put the washi on. So I lay them down, flip them over, sorry, get all my junk out of the way, and then I use the grid on my work surface. You certainly don't have to, and I'm going to put a thin bead of glue, and any wet glue will work just fine, a thin bead of glue on both sides right near the edge, because washi is designed to be temporary. And this allows you to use your washi, which is relatively strong, but it makes it pretty sticky. And I just grabbed this particular washi. You don't want a super thin washi for this, or super narrow, I should say, but you want something that has a little bit of heft. And I'm going to make it just... actually, you know what? I'm not going to tear it. I am going to just use my grid underneath and try to center this mostly. And okay, that's pretty much straight, and I'm going to push down. Then I am going to lift it up and fold it over. I'm going to take off my piece of reusable tape, masking tape, and I'm going to do the same thing. You can see I didn't line it up perfectly over here. I wasn't looking closely, but it doesn't really matter for this particular project. It's not going to make a bit of a difference either way. And again, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down the line, and I'm going to fold this over and push, and then I'll pull it down and line it up. And you can certainly tear it off if you want to, but for the sake of this project, I'm going to cut it. And just put a little bit of adhesive right here at the end and push. Okay, so now you've got your background, your outline of your booklet. If you want to ink it, now is a great time to ink it. I did bring that over here in case you want to put a little bit of color on, but because I've got 6 minutes, I don't want to spend too terribly long with that. Okay, so I've got my base cover, and now what I need to do is put in my insides. So I'm taking this paper, and then we know this is 4 inches and this is 6 inches, but I don't want the pages to stick out, so I'm going to cut it just shy of 4 and just shy of 6. So I've got my folded over, and you don't want too many sheets because it'll get really bulky. I think I have 5 or 6 in here. So I'm going to do just a little bit less than 4. Sorry, I should have used my other trimmer. In fact, I will, because this is just crazy. I'm going to use a big trimmer. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, sorry about that. So I cut it down to 4 by 6. I use the larger trimmer just because it's easier. It's not a guillotine style. And so then I've got the insert that I'm going to put inside my book. And it should fit just like so. See? And yeah, it's good. So what I want to do next is line it up so that I have a little bit of extra space on the top and the bottom, just a smidge. I can trim the edges off in a little bit if I want to. I don't need to, because if you put anything on, it'll kind of expand your pages and makes them a little bulky. So I use some binder clips just to hold this in place while I get the seam ready to sew. And then I use this as my guideline to where I'm going to poke the holes. Now, I like 5 holes, but 3 holes is just fine for this particular project. It's thin, it's narrow, you don't need 5 by any means. That's just I use this over and over, and it's set for 5, and I don't mind. And it's so thin, I don't really even need a book or a cradle or anything to poke my holes. I just use my guide, poke my holes. And holes are poked, and I move this away. Now, I threaded this in advance to make this maybe into my 6-minute time frame. And what I do to get these threaded is I put a drop of glue. I don't know if you can see that there. I put a drop of glue at the very end of the string, and then I roll it back and forth between my finger. And it makes kind of like a needle within a needle, and it makes it a whole lot easier to get through the narrow eye of the needle. Like on this one over here that I hand sewed, I started at one up from the center because I knew I wanted to put a charm on there so it hung off the back. Normally I start in the center, but you certainly don't have to. You can pretty much start anywhere you want to sew this. And you basically, I'm going to do the string on the inside this time. If you want it to be on the outside, start from the outside. I want it to be on the inside. Now, if you're binding a big, huge piece, you can put a paper clip here, and that'll guarantee that you're not going to pull your string all the way through. But for the sake of this is so fast and so easy and so thin that I don't even need to do that. So, and then I just go up and back and up and back. I've already got my holes poked. Sorry, I went off camera. I apologize. I'm going to go center up and then back down. The angle's kind of funky here, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. So then I'm going to go back up through that same, sorry, I did it again. Go up, back up through that same hole and back down. And I'm going to hang on to it because it's easy to overlap. Okay, so you can see on the outside I can go through it this way as well. I've already got those holes pre-poked. And up and down, and then again I'm going to come back on this side and poke it through here. Now, some people will push it through again in the center and then come back and tie it, but I don't really need it to be that bulky, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, let's see, I'll move this back just a little so you can see. So I've got the 2 pieces for the center, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug to make sure that it's tight, and then I'll come under the so that the string matches up without having to create another hole. And then I'm just going to tie it in a knot, and I usually leave the strings dangling in case I want to put a bead or a charm or something on it, and I almost always double knot it. And so there's the 1 and 2, and especially for something this size, that's more than enough. All right, take off my binder clips, and my booklet is essentially done. Now, I can use the leftover pieces, and in fact, I probably would and will. I can put a side pocket like you saw in some of the others. I can do a front pocket. I can do a tuck. On the Disney book, I used both pieces to make a double pocket, or a double piece of paper pocket. So you can use those, any way you want. You can put them on the inside to make a side tuck pocket there, or a corner tuck. You can use it to make a tag. You can use one as a pocket and one as a tag. You can use those extra bits however you like. I could also round the corners right now if I wanted to do that. And again, I could ink all the way around. So that's it. That's project number 1 in my 6x6 in 6. And I think I was close to 6 minutes. I may have gone over because of my talking, but I think the construction of it altogether took about 6 minutes. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a blessed day.